Hi, it's Mandy. A few weeks ago, I showed you how I made custom stencils from my doodles using a Cricut Maker. Along with some stencil tips and tricks, I'm going to show you guys how I use these flower doodle stencils to create a really fun tonal wallpaper look on my daughter's bare bedroom walls. Before beginning on the walls, I did trim down the original stencil size so that I could fit the stencils really close together on the wall. It's helpful to tape up as many stencils as I have all at once so I can figure out the arrangement of my design on the wall before I actually begin painting. This will prevent me from discovering any awkward spacing issues after I've painted a section, because at that point it's too late to make a change. Of course, the beauty of paint is that if you make any big mistakes, you can simply repaint the area and start over. You can either use a sponge or a stencil brush to work on your design. This is really a preference issue, but I prefer using a sponge to a brush because I feel like I have a little bit more control depending on the pressure that I use. Wet the sponge or brush with some paint, but not too much, or the excess paint will glob under the stencil as you dab it onto the surface. It can be helpful to dab off extra paint before actually beginning on the stencil. If your stencil is kind of big like mine, start dabbing in the wider spaces of your stencil and then work your way to the edges once your brush is relatively dry. If you're working with a more intricate small stencil, then you should really only begin painting it if your brush is already mostly dry. When painting with a bristle brush, just keep the brush perpendicular to the wall and tap the bristles onto the wall like this. Don't tap at an angle or you'll risk the bristles slipping behind the stencil and then getting the paint in areas that will just mess up your design. After painting the stencils that I had taped up on the wall, I immediately brought all of them to a bowl of warm soapy water where I gently scrubbed them and then patted them dry. I could do the next round of stenciling. When you get to the edges or the corners of your room, you can bend the plastic of your stencil and you can tape off the areas where you don't want the paint to go. Or you could use a detail brush at the edges like I did. After bending a stencil, the bent plastic can almost go back to normal, especially if you bend them back while they're in warm water. But really, they'll never sit perfectly straight again. So because of this, I think it's a good idea to have some extra stencils that you only use in the corner areas. I think the work I put into this wall really is so worth it now that I can see the faux wallpaper look developing in here. It'll look even better with curtains on the windows and curtains around the bed, which is another fun project I'll be showing you soon. Next week, tune in for a textiles project I'll be doing with some scraps left over from past projects. I hope to see you then.